Okay, so welcome to week 4 of the meditation course. Um, what we'll be doing this week, maybe I'll just share it on the screen. So what we'll do this week, hopefully you can all see that there. So we will, oh yeah, let me just. So what we'll do this week is we will have our usual introductions and we'll do a recap of last week and we'll look at how we got on with the home practice during the week. We will do a period of the Metta Bhavana practice. So we learned that last week and I'll lead us through another practice of that shortly. In the second half then, what we're going to do is we're going to explore the ways that we get distracted in meditation. So we're going to, well, it's going to be a bit more than that actually. We're going to be looking at what to do when meditation goes well, but also what to do in terms of how to respond to when we get distracted. So I'm going to assume that you all still get distracted in meditation. Even after 20 years, I still get a bit distracted at times. And then we'll do a short sit exploring working with distractions, yeah? And then we'll have home practice and obviously we'll be answering questions at the end, but also throughout if you have them, yeah? So just to remind you of what we did last week. So, oops, give me 1 second here. To remind you of what we did last week, we looked at the development of loving kindness. So we were looking at this meditation practice. It was where we develop a loving kindness. Well, we looked at metta first. Metta is loving kindness, friendliness, empathy, warmth. The technical or the fullest definition is it's the wholehearted desire for the well-being and happiness of a person. So you want someone to be well and happy. So it's not necessarily that you have a really nice feeling, although that can happen. It's more that you just really want them to be well and happy, or indeed you want yourself to be well and happy. So different stages, metta for yourself first of all, for a good friend then, for a neutral person, for a difficult person, for all 4 people equally, and then expanding out to include more and more people in your kind awareness and you open to all beings everywhere, yeah? So yeah, so that's the practice that we looked at last week. Okay, so what I'll do now, let me just check. Yeah, so why don't I just launch a poll and you can start filling in the poll about how you got on during the week. And there's a question as well, a new question this week about how you got on with the Metta Bhavana. And you can start asking questions as well in the chat box. And I'll give you a minute or two to start filling the poll out and then I'll start answering the questions. So why don't we go with the poll? So it should be up on your screen. And remembering that if you're on a phone, it might be a little trickier to see. You scroll down with the scroll bar and so on. So hopefully you can get going on that. I'll answer the questions in a moment, but send them in if you wish. Great, so thank you. The results are coming in already. I know it's very hard to communicate your meditation experience in a poll, but it does give a sense to all of us of how we each got on during the week as well. So more people have arrived, so you're very welcome to the course if you've just arrived. If you've just arrived, you might have missed the poll, but there is a poll going on at the moment. If you haven't, that's okay. If you can't see it, that's okay. Don't worry. We'll get enough of a sense of people. And don't forget, you can write your questions or comments in the chat box as well. So about 80% of people have voted. It usually doesn't go much more than this for some reason, but we'll see how we get on. Okay, we're up to 86%. Okay, so someone asked, I had a very strong reaction after metta practice last Wednesday. I was really frustrated afterwards. That is interesting. I mean, in a way, the Metta Bhavana is a practice that opens the lid at times on your emotions. It can in some ways be a bit of a Pandora's box actually in some ways, but I think if you did experience strong frustration afterwards, maybe just look at how you're doing the practice and just lower your expectations for the practice, and just try and maybe all you need to do is just try and be open to the person and stay with that feeling of openness, rather than trying to feel like you should be experiencing much more. That might be frustrating you as well. But generally, if you're feeling frustrated, it might be a question of effort and expectation. So watch out for the effort you're putting in trying to make something happen, and trying to look out for what story you're telling yourself about what should happen in the practice. That's okay, Emma. So thanks for that comment. Sheila said, I found the metta bhavana much easier than the other meditations, which I found quite stressful. Yeah, you might find this amazing, but some people find the metta bhavana much easier than the mindfulness of breathing because there's more to engage with. So with Sheila, if you find the other practices stressful, just try and maybe, again, effort, just try and ease your effort and ease your expectations. Just keep it really simple. Don't even feel you have to do anything apart from be with the breath. And even that, just do it in a very relaxed way. Someone asked privately, do you change the friend, the neutral person every day? I would say pick really good examples for the first week and stick with them, and then just start to change them as you want to. So yeah, you could change them every day once you get used to the practice. One friend of mine goes through all his friends alphabetically, but just don't spend too long trying to pick the person, if you see what I mean. Just pick someone and go with them, because you can spend the whole 4 or 5 minutes just trying to pick the exactly right person, and then the stage is gone, which might feel quite convenient when it's the difficult person, but there you go. I would like to send my family love and kindness more than the 4 suggested. I'm not sure what that means, Bernie. Maybe you could clarify that. Catherine, sorry to hear the poll didn't work. Okay, finding it hard to sit for 30 minutes. My head feels heavy. I'm working on, you were talking about getting enough air in. Okay, did meditation. Okay, that's great. So you can meditate. Lots of people like meditating outside, and by the sea is a nice place to meditate. That's good. It was difficult doing metta for myself. Yeah, that's an interesting tension, Mike, and that's part of the questions that comes up in meditation. The first stage will be difficult because you're starting cold, so to speak, and you're first, and often it's a bit more complicated. But give yourself the benefit of the doubt in meditation, particularly in the metta bhavana. So give yourself the benefit of the doubt that even if you don't feel much, that something is going on. Even the intention to wish yourself well has an effect. Yeah. Hilda, Hilda, just watch out for your effort. You might be trying to squeeze something out. If you feel really drained after the metta bhavana, there's this thing, that tube of toothpaste where you try and squeeze the last bit of the toothpaste out, and you end up feeling like that squeezed out tube of toothpaste. So usually that happens when you're trying to squeeze something out for people. So really, the practice is just about being open to the person and just stay in touch with your heart. Just try and stay open rather than trying to send them anything or force anything out. And that will help with feeling drained. Usually the metta bhavana, it is a practice where people can misuse effort, so to speak, or get the effort slightly wrong. Kathy, I felt more compassionate towards the difficult person I was using. That's great. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's fine. You can use family, Bernie, as you wish. Yeah, absolutely. Please do include family. Do try and, if they're not in the neutral stage, which they won't be probably, or they're not in the difficult stage, you could just work through your family over different days in the friend stage. Although I find it's usually family and friends who end up in the difficult stage as well. Dara, it is hard to wish yourself well. It's good that you can feel it for other people though. So, that is a good sign. Maybe what you can work with in the first stage, Dara, is just accepting what you find there with kindness rather than trying to do anything with it. Just accept, this is how I am. That's okay. I'm going to work at that, Okay, thanks. I got a giggle from picturing the 4 people. Yeah, good. I find the metta with the difficult person really hard. I seem to be focusing on the thing about them that I don't like, even though I know I should not do that. Yeah, that is the challenge. And what helps me is to imagine them in a situation where I'm not involved. So I imagine them with their family, maybe with people who care for them, and I'm totally not involved. I'm like a fly on the wall looking at it. And I can see that they have family members who like them as well, or they have people they care about. No matter how difficult they are with me, they are a human being. And it might be that you have to look at, it might be that you can't just sit there and do metta for them. It might be that you have to work out, is it helpful for me to focus on the difficulty here? You might have to reflect a bit as well with the difficult person to free yourself up. So it's quite it's a practice that has a lot of dimensions to it as well. So, and you're not going to get all your difficulties sorted overnight. So don't expect too much as well initially, but it will have an effect over time. Thanks, Kevin. It took me ages not to be doing why this person should be in this stage. Yeah, exactly. And also it's like, why should I bother doing metta for this person? So it's those kinds of views, the one that Kevin said, and like, why should I do metta? You might have to look at those as well. Okay, in terms of the polling, so most people did it 5 days, which is great. And a few people did it every day or more than once a day even. So it's been pretty good actually. Some people didn't get to do it at all. So do remember to prioritize it, which was the main reason why people didn't do it. But most people said nothing got in the way. Some people are still finding it hard to find the time in the day. I think that number will probably increase as more people go back to work, which is certainly happening in this country. If you're on lockdown, it's probably easier to find time. That's when you forget to prioritize it then, of course. How did you find the Metta Bhavana? So a lovely practice. Most people found it a lovely practice that they enjoyed. So that's good to hear. So just remember that even if you found it difficult, it is possible to enjoy it as well. And it might just take a bit of time to get used to it as well, 20% of people found it challenging but very rewarding. 30% of people said challenging but could see the point. That's good. I've misspelled challenging. Apologies there. And 2 people found it just challenging, and 3 people said other. But do pass on comments in the chat box if you want me to respond to anything specifically. But I'd really like to emphasize that in terms of that point of effort and expectation. So, really, I think where a lot of people go wrong with this practice is they try and make something, to try and feel something, to try and make themselves feel something that isn't quite metta or isn't quite what the practice is about. So you're trying to make yourself feel all lovey and gooey or warm or whatever. And that might happen at times, but really what it is an intention that you're opening to the person as a human being and say, yes, I would like them to be well. Yeah, yes, I would like them to be happy. And it can be as simple as that. And in a way, that's what the phrases are trying to do. They're trying to evoke that response that actually, yes, I would like this person to be well and happy. And it's enough if that's all you feel, that, yeah, I would actually like this person to be well and happy, even though I don't feel a massive emotional counterpart to that. That is enough as a starting point. And just stay with that, and it tends to grow over time. But don't be expecting like, overwhelming loving kindness for all that live. You know what I mean? That can happen. But if you expect it to happen, or if you want that to happen really strongly, you'll just end up exhausting yourself or getting in the way of an actual effective meditation practice. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And then like the difficult stages that people find are usually the first stage and the fourth stage. In the first stage, the way I tend to like to do it these days is think more in terms of tenderness. So you're opening to yourself with tenderness. So we have all these aches and pains and sorrows and joys and so on, emotional, mental, physical. And we can just open to the feeling like, oh God, life is hard sometimes, and just being kind towards that, being a bit tender towards yourself and saying, okay, I feel this, and just allowing yourself to feel a certain tenderness towards your aches and pains. That can be a good way in as well to metta in the first stage. The image that comes to me, I'm just looking out the window, we have lots of birds in our back garden. If you found a bird with a damaged wing, a hurt wing, a broken wing in the garden, you'd be very tender about how you picked it up. You might pick up very tenderly and look after it until it's recovered, put it in a little comfortable box or something and feed it. You'd be very, very tender towards that bird in terms of how you lift it and how you hold it in your hands and so on. And that's the kind of tenderness I think we should try and bring to our own experience, actually, rather than feelings of contempt or ill will or unhappiness. So bring a certain attitude of that kind of tenderness to ourselves in the first stage. And if we do that, the first stage will be a lot easier. And we don't have to do much more than that. It's just an attitude of tenderness. That's all you need to do, really. Okay, I don't see many more questions coming in. So why don't we just do the practice? So why don't we set ourselves up for for a period of the metta bhavana? So we'll do it for about 25 minutes. So why don't we just pick the people now while we're waiting? So why don't we pick a good friend so we don't have to do that in the practice? Why don't we pick a neutral person now so we don't have to do that in the practice? Why don't we pick a difficult person now? And again, someone we can manage, someone who's not going to be overwhelming. You can work up to those people as you get more familiar with the practice later on. Okay, and then settling into our posture, settling into sitting here. If we need to make any final adjustments, we can do so now. And we try and remain still in the practice, though moving slowly if you really need to. Settling into a sense of ourselves seated here in this room, in these surroundings, with these sounds we can hear. Having a sense of the people in the building and the area around us. Tuning into ourselves then a bit more fully. Becoming aware of the body. Maybe opening with that tenderness I talked about towards the body. Any aches and pains, any feelings of discomfort. Allowing them in the body. Showing an attitude of tenderness towards them. The same kind of tenderness we'd show an injured animal we came across. If that helps. So feeling where the body is in contact with the floor, with the cushions, with the chair. Opening to what we can feel there, allowing that in. Feeling upright, the spine rising from the sitting bones, the support of what we're sitting in, the back of the neck long, the crown rising towards the ceiling. And having a feeling of being relaxed within this uprightness as well. What can we feel in the stomach? What can we feel in the chest area? Can we feel the rise and fall of our rib cage as we breathe in and out? Our face is soft, our shoulders are relaxed. And then opening again with metta to how this all feels. Are we at ease? Are we comfortable? Is it pleasant? Is it painful? Allowing that in. Again, allowing it in with tenderness. Rather than aversion. Tuning into our emotions. If we feel them in the heart, or maybe in the stomach or the throat. So opening to whatever emotional weather is there. And again, allowing that in with tenderness. Allowing that to play out without getting too caught up in it. But having a receptivity, a softness towards it. Allowing it in. Noticing the pains and the pleasures unfolding in our emotional experience. And allowing them to be. And noticing any thoughts as well. Letting them simply arise and pass away, any persistent thoughts. Not getting lost in them as well. And having an attitude of kindness and acceptance of those as well. With a sense of just letting them be. And we'll continue this moving into the first stage now of the Metta Bhavana. Having an open, kind acceptance of what's going on for ourselves. Moving from there, when we're ready, into actively wishing ourselves well. Wishing ourselves happiness. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I grow and develop. And now bringing to mind the good friend we chose earlier, opening to a sense of them, bringing them to mind. We can simply sit with a sense of them, opening our hearts to them, having a sense of them, having a sense of our own response, and wishing them well, wishing that they may be well and happy. We may even say to them, may you be well. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you grow and develop. And if you wander off, just coming back again to yourself and then the good friend and opening your heart again to them, or at least wishing them well. And now when you're ready, letting go of the good friend, tuning back into yourself and metta for yourself for a moment. When you're ready then, bringing to mind the neutral person you picked earlier, and trying to stay engaged with them as a person who, just like you, has joys and sorrows, ups and downs. Maybe imaginatively seeing them in their lives and wishing them well, wishing them happiness. Even if it's just a simple feeling of, yes, I want this person to be well. I would like that person to be happy. Staying with that, and that will grow. not forcing anything out. And we can use the phrases, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be free from suffering, may you grow and develop. Coming back to the practice again if we've wandered off. And now letting go of the neutral person, tuning into ourselves again, opening with kindness to our own experience of sitting here once more. And then when you're ready, opening your mind, opening your heart to the difficult person you chose earlier. And trying to leave aside the difficulty as best we can. Remember that they are a human being just like us. Perhaps bringing them to mind in a situation where you're not there, but there with people who love them and care for them. They're doing things they like just like we like doing things. And wishing them well despite the difficulties. And if you wander off or into something that isn't metta, coming back to yourself and metta for yourself. And when you're ready, engaging again with the difficult person, wishing them well. And now letting go of the difficult person and coming back to ourselves once more. Connecting, making sure we're in our bodies. We have metta for ourselves. When you're ready, then bringing to mind, as well as yourself, the good friend, the neutral person, the difficult person, and seeing if we can open our hearts equally to all four people, wishing metta equally for all four. Wishing that each of us are well and happy, are free from suffering, and will grow and develop, going beyond preference for one person over another. And then expanding out to take in more and more people. I'll leave you to do that in your own way. Expanding out to become more and more, become aware of more and more people and wishing them well, wishing that they may be well and happy. Not forcing anything out, but just expanding out, becoming more aware of more and more people and that they may be well and happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings grow and develop. So now letting go of the practice, letting go of all effort to do anything, letting go of all effort to do nothing, letting go of all effort, all practice. And we'll just sit for a few moments. So broadening out our awareness once more then to include the room around us, the sounds we can hear. We can actively listen to the sounds to broaden out our awareness. Sense the people, the contact with the floor and the cushions. Starting to reintroduce movement in your own time appropriately and slowly. And coming out and bringing the practice to a close then when you're ready. Okay, so that was the Metta Bhavana. Feel free to write any comments or questions in the chat box. I had a couple of things occurred to me there while doing it, or was reminded of a couple of things I thought I'd say. The first is that in terms of the question of effort and trying to force things, if you find that you are a bit tired afterwards, or have a bit of a headache afterwards, or you feel a bit drained afterwards, where you're, maybe because you're forcing it, a useful thing to do is to try and ground yourself more in your body as you're doing it. Stay more in touch with your heart and your stomach as you're doing it, as opposed to the other person. So in a way, for me, there's always two poles in this practice: being in touch with yourself and having a sense of the other person. And sometimes you'll need to focus more on the other person. Sometimes you need to bring it back to what you're feeling. So if you are forcing it, I think I find it useful myself to bring it more back to my own heart, my own sense. And, you still have the sense of the person, but that can be, the emphasis can be more on yourself. And then the other thing I was thinking is that there's a famous phrase of the Buddha, and this is from a very early text called the Dhammapada. And he said, hatreds are never solved by hatred in the world. Hatreds are never ceased by hatreds. They are only ceased by love. This is the eternal law. So hatred are never ceased by hatred in the world. They're only ceased by love. So, meeting a difficulty with hatred, even if it's anything from irritability up to full-blown rage, it never makes the situation better. The Buddha is saying you only really diffuse things through practice of metta, through practice of love. And you've probably seen this yourself, that when you're having difficulty with people, the ways you tend to actually truly resolve them is not through more antagonism. It's always by trying to step out of yourself and into the other person's shoes, or having a sense of kindness or something like that. So that is a useful reflection to dwell upon when it comes to the difficult person, or even metta for yourself as well. Yeah. Okay, so a couple of questions or comments. So some people really enjoyed it. Thank you. Can you explain a bit more about grow and develop? It suggests not good enough. Well, you can maybe is it okay to use another word, boundless? Use whatever phrase evokes it for you. I mean, the phrases are kind of off-the-shelf phrases that generally are pretty good. But if you want to tailor them to be more specific and meaningful for you, that's fine. I mean, the Buddhist perspective on grow and develop is that, no matter how kind you are, you can always work to be even more kind. And you don't use that as a stick to beat yourself up that you're not kind enough. I think that's a kind of a Western attitude that we can have. Is my sound okay?
Your sound is gone.
Okay, one sec. Okay, is the sound... okay, we're just going to wait and see if the sound is still gone. Breaking up, yeah, sorry about that. I'm going to keep talking until it comes back.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay, great. Okay, sorry about that. So what was the last thing you heard, Kevin?
It was hard to tell because
he was breaking it.
Yeah.
That's fine. Oh yeah, grow and develop, yes. So use other phrases if they work for you better. Grow and develop, what the Buddhist perspective is that no matter how kind you are, you can always be even more kind. But that doesn't mean getting judgmental about how kind you are right now. That's a bit of more of a Western attitude to bring, I think, where we always see the lack rather than what we have already. So in terms of grow and develop, it's saying, well, okay, you do matter for yourself. You're a really good person, and you become an even better person again. And there's nothing wrong with the person. Well, it's not that there's nothing wrong with the person you are. It doesn't really think in those terms. It's just saying that no matter where you're at, you can always become even more kind. And that's an unlimited process that goes all the way up to the Buddha and beyond, you could say. So, but use words that work for you, whoever Galaxy S10 is. Pamela, yeah, very positive, yeah, very emotional. It is an emotional practice. Roshan said that as well. It will open up the heart, but in a way, your emotions are always rumbling around in there anyway and affecting you. So it's better to get into a relationship with those, Sinead used the phrase, may you flourish. That's good as well, yeah. I found it difficult to find a neutral person. Harry, just pick someone and go with them. Doesn't matter if they're not exactly right. I mean, I was picking the guy who lives across the road there, and I was realizing, actually, I quite like the guy, even though I've never talked to him in my life. You know what I mean? So if you can't find anyone you don't like, or anyone that's truly neutral, well, you said strong, either for or against, just go with someone. Just go with someone who's relatively neutral. Nobody's probably truly neutral, or have a think about people you've never talked to in your office, or someone down the road you've not talked to. You just, in a way, you just don't have to, it's someone you don't have a strong emotional connection with. Sonia says it's very difficult. The difficult person last week and during the week, I found my voice even changing as I was trying to wish her wellness. It was very raw as the incident happened last Wednesday morning. Today I found this less. Okay. I mean, Sonia, you might want to pick someone a bit easier for the first bit until you get used to the practice. As you get more used to the practice, you can tackle people more difficult, Sorry to hear that, Kieran, that you had head and shoulder pain. Hopefully that was just physical. I mean, obviously, I wish it wasn't there altogether. Thanks for putting the quote in there, Kevin. Yeah. Felt calmer, more connected. Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so you can keep your questions coming in, but just to move on a little bit. So just take a little break. I just wanted to mention a few courses that are coming up in the Buddhist Centre. So the good news is that we have confirmed that the follow-on course will be happening, the follow-on meditation course. So that will be happening straight the week after this course. So, oh yeah, that's the other thing to say. Next week I will be away on retreat. So Nyanadara, who's my co-worker in the Dublin Buddhist Centre, will be leading a practice week next week with chances for questions and answers. So do come along to that. It'll be a good week. And then the week after that, I'll do week 5 of this course. And then the week after that, the date is the 1st of July, we'll be running a 5-week follow-on meditation course. So that it's like this, it's free. You can sign up for it. I'll send you the link later on today and in the next couple of weeks. We'll be running it from 10:30 until 12:15 p.m. So it'll be 15 minutes longer just to give us a chance to do a bit more as well. And that's a 5-week course, and it's on a donation basis again, like this course. So hopefully we'll see many of you here. There'll be other people from the other courses as well. We'll probably do a bit more interactive. We'll probably break into smaller groups as well to talk about meditation a bit more on that course. We can do that in Zoom. And we'll go more deeply into the mindfulness of breathing, the metta bhavana, just sitting, reflection, and so on. So they're the kind of things that we'll be doing in that course. So do come along to that. Ideally, we want you on that course to have a practice going already. So it's not a beginner's course. But even if you've learned to meditate and you've done the practices a few times and you've got some kind of sense of connection with it, which hopefully you have, do come along to that course. I'll email you about that again later today. Another couple of courses on Tuesday evenings, starting on the 30th of June, I'll be running a course which is probably going to be called How to Live in a World on Fire. So it's based upon a book called Not About Being Good, and it's exploring the world of Buddhist ethics. So it's a Buddhism course. And there won't be loads of meditation on it, but it'll be looking at the whole question of how do we live well from a Buddhist perspective? What are Buddhist ethics? And in Buddhism, we don't have an external God. We don't have these objective things of good and evil in the same way that I've grown up with as a Catholic. So we're looking at, well, what is good and what is not good in Buddhism, and how can we live well in a difficult world, you know? So that's a 6-week course on Tuesday evenings from 7 to 9 p.m. Starting Tuesday the 30th of June. I'll email you that as well later on today. So if you're curious about Buddhism, that would be a good one. And then the last course I'll mention, and again, that's all donation and so on, free with donations. And then the last one is, we'll be running, I think it's a 5-week course called Mindfulness for Parents. And that's going to be starting on the 20th of June, which is about 10 days time, on a Friday, I think it is, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. I still have to get some of the details of that, but it's looking at how we can practice mindfulness as a parent. How can we have our life as a parent to be part of our spiritual path, part of our Buddhist path, not just a hindrance to it? How can we keep mindfulness and calmness and positivity in the challenges of parenting? How can we be a good example for our kids as well? So that is going to be led by Tuli Mitra, who is a parent. I'm not a parent. And she's run a few workshops on that, and that'll be quite interesting if you are a parent yourself. Yeah, so I'll send you the details of all those 3 courses in the email this afternoon. And again, just to remind you, do come along next week, but it won't be a formal course. It'll be a practice morning, and I'll see you the week after for week 5. And then the last thing to say, because I really need to move on, is don't forget to donate if you can. I'll send you the link at the end for the donations. Okay, so the next thing then is I want you to ask you a question. Let me just share the screen again. So I want you to reflect upon this question and maybe start typing into the chat box. In what way do you tend to get distracted in meditation? Okay, in what way do you tend to get distracted in meditation? So I assume that that many of you are still getting distracted in meditation. So what way do you tend to get distracted in meditation? Yeah. So have a think about that for a minute, and when you're ready, you can type into the chat box. So thanks, Cor. So Cora's just said, for example, your mind wanders off. But what I'm really curious about is, what's the tend to go to? Yeah, what does it tend to go to? If you don't have to share like excruciating details or anything, but is there a pattern to what it tends to go off to? Or is there a pattern with how you get preoccupied in a way that takes you away from meditation? Okay, lots of ones coming in now. Okay, good. Mind wanders off. Stories in my head. Get bored and get into thoughts. Stuff I have to do. Find it hard to slow the mind. Anxiety is comfortable to sit with. To-do list. Pain in your body, Pamela says. Thinking of my to-do list. Worries. To-do list. Lots of to-do lists. Busyness of my day. Just think about other things, what I'll do later on. If something is bothering me, I can easily get into problem solving. Yeah, I do a lot of problem solving in my head. Sometimes I think I do my best thinking in meditation, unfortunately. I think of all the things I need to get done, sharing the house with a noisy family. Yeah. Caught up in previous dramas, what to cook later, what I have to do today, the usual chat, worries, lots of stuff. So too many to read out, but there are definitely patterns emerging. What's going on in my life right now? Random thoughts. Okay, good. Imaginary conversations. It's always nice to replay that conversation with that person that you had the argument with and imagine that zinger you were going to hit them with that would solve everything, isn't it? Oh, so someone's drawing on the screen by mistake. Okay. Sorry, hang on a second. Any other chat? Let me bring up the chat again. Random thoughts. Yeah. Okay, good. Conversations with people. Okay, so the next question then is, let me just bring it up here. What positives do you experience in meditation? So have a think about this again. So do you experience calmness, enjoyment, other things, pleasure, spaciousness? You know, what kind of things do you tend to, what have you experienced? Not abstract, what have you actually experienced in meditation? Great, sounds good. I won't read these all out because there's too many, which is very nice to see. Lovely. Well, I'll read one or two because I'm sure not everyone can see the chat box. Serenity, feel good to get in space, wholeness, calmness, everyone having the same needs. That's a good one for the Metta Bhavana, yeah. Definite sense of calm and a sense of peace. Thanks, Roisin. Think about finding more mindful, yeah, being grounded, yeah, more clarity. Good. Okay, so maybe that's enough for now. So connected, thanks, Judith. So it's important to remember, I'm going to start talking now about ways that we get distracted in meditation, but it is important to remember as well that we can have very positive experiences in meditation. And when you have those kinds of positive experiences in meditation, like Buddhism is really clear that it's very good to enjoy those. You know, there's nothing wrong with pleasure in meditation. In fact, having pleasure in meditation, like a truly pleasurable meditation, like the pleasure of peace, of connection, of groundedness, is a really good thing, and we need that. And there's nothing wrong with that. So in meditation, when things go well, we just try and enjoy it. We try and relax into it. We try and appreciate it. If you're doing like the mindfulness of breathing and you find the breath is very enjoyable, well, just let go into that, or your body feels very relaxed and happy. Just try and let go into that. Become more aware of that pleasure, actually, but without grasping onto it or trying to cling onto it or squeeze it out, you know? You can let the breath be a little bit more in the background and focus a bit more on the pleasure, and that will bring you deeper into meditation, actually. Or similarly in the Metta Bhavana, it can actually be very, very enjoyable sometimes in the Metta Bhavana to really have a sense of connection with the person. And a good thing to do is to really let go into really kind of feel that pleasure as well as the person. So you can bring that into the practice as well. And that will make you more interested in the practice and bring you deeper into the practice as well. So pleasure is not something to be avoided. Healthy pleasure is not something to be avoided in meditation in this way. So that's what we do when things go well. Now, I have to talk a bit longer about when things don't go well, but I don't want that to mean that meditation is all about things going wrong, okay? Just to say that as well. So in terms of the ways that we get distracted, the Buddha talked about 5 hindrances to meditation, 5 things that get in the way of us enjoying and appreciating meditation or really staying with the meditation fully. So these are 5 ways that the mind tends, these are kind of groupings, 5 general groupings for how we tend to be distracted, how we tend to be taken away from the breath in the mindfulness of breathing, for example, or from the metta bhavana. So I'll go through these and hopefully we can see how all those things you typed into the chat a few minutes ago will probably fall into one of these categories generally. So the first one is called sense desire. And these terms are a little bit archaic at times, but what this means is that you've got a preoccupation with pleasant experience. So traditionally it's said that you're sitting there and you're thinking about food, sex, or sleep. They're the traditional ones, yeah. But you could also be replaying that Netflix film you watched last night, or planning your next move in a computer game that you're playing online with people, or thinking about I don't know, any source of pleasure. I mean, I think problem solving is a source of pleasure as well, actually, you know. So for me, when I learned meditation, I was a scientist in college, and I used to really enjoy solving problems in my head, mathematical problems. I know that's awfully geeky, but there you go. And that's what I used to do in my meditation practice. So sense desire is looking for pleasure in your meditation that your meditation isn't currently giving you. Usually looking for pleasure somewhere else. It's that feeling of when you're sitting in meditation, feeling like, oh, I just really like to be back in bed again in my warm bed, you know, and so on. And the mind is said to be a sense organ in Buddhism as well. So we can be thinking about pleasant memories, for example, or thinking about how lovely that person is, you know, that we're actively falling in love with, you know. So it's not necessarily that there's anything wrong with wanting to go back to bed or wanting some nice food or falling in love in your head with someone or whatever it is, but it does take you away from the meditation. So do those things elsewhere. And in the meditation, just stay with the meditation. Look for more pleasure in the meditation itself. Try and see if you can enjoy the breath, enjoy the metta bhavana more, and so on. So hopefully people can maybe see if that's part of one of the things you do. And I think when people say thinking about your day ahead, I think that can be 2 ways. So if it's pleasurable planning, oh, I can do that, and then I can do that, and then I can do that. Oh, that'll be great to get that sorted. Thanks, Emma. That'll be great to get that sorted. That's probably sense desire, yeah. So Emma just said that she did science too, and that's why I love problem solving. So problem solving is really enjoyable, actually. And again, there's nothing wrong with problem solving, but don't do it in meditation, and watch out for being too much of a habit that you kind of take solace in too much, you know. So the next one then is kind of the opposite of sense desire. So sense desire is being preoccupied with pleasant things. Ill will is being preoccupied with unpleasant things. So this is where you just can't let go of that argument you had with someone. It's where, I don't know if you could hear earlier, but as we were starting the meditation, the bin men came along, collected our bins at the front, and ill will will be sitting there thinking, they're so damn loud, I wish they'd shut up, you know? That sort of thing. It's getting, someone mentioned earlier on about, you know, their family is very loud in the house. So I'm not sure if they're in ill will there, but you might be sitting there going, I wish those fuckers would shut up, you know? Or maybe it's finding, you know, the feelings of discomfort in your body and really wishing they would go away. So ill will covers a broad spectrum of anything from mild irritability up to murderous rage. And it's anything you want to push away in your experience, really. So that's what ill will comes down to. It's wanting to push something away, getting preoccupied with something. Or it can also be like replaying arguments you had with a difficult person, things like this. And again, hatred has no place. Ill will is utterly corrosive. There's no place for ill will anywhere in the Buddhist tradition, you know. So that's where you're preoccupied with something unpleasant. So hopefully that's clear. Do ask questions if not. So it might be you can recognize sometimes yourself doing those patterns as well. I'll come back in a few minutes to what to do about these when they happen. The third one then is one that seemed to be mentioned quite a bit in the chat there, is restlessness and anxiety. So restlessness tends to be the more physical side of it, and anxiety is the more emotional side of it. So restlessness, you just can't sit still. You're fidgety, you've got itches and so on. And the teaching with physical restlessness is just to try and sit still. Don't give into it. I think I mentioned this last week, but ask yourself, do you really need to move? And if the answer is yes, then don't move. Ask yourself deeply again, do you really need to move? If the answer is yes, you don't move. And if on the third time the answer is yes, then you move very, very slowly and very, very carefully. Scratch or whatever you need to do and move yourself back down again. Now, obviously, if your knee is in terrible pain and you've just got a really bad posture or something's wrong, move slowly and carefully to ease that. But if it's just restlessness, often when you start to go deeper into meditation, you'll get restless because your mind doesn't want to go into the depths. And even if you have to make your practice not moving, that can be a very effective practice. Restlessness is one of the things I really experienced when I first started meditating. And I just had to make my practice for a period of weeks even not moving. And actually it took me really much deeper than I would have otherwise gone. So really work with physical restlessness if you can, even if you just have to make your practice not moving. Now, anxiety is the more emotional side of it, and we live in the age of anxiety. And anxiety is very challenging, you know. Yeah, and a lot of you did talk there in the chat box about, you know, worrying about things you have to do later on the day, concerned with your to-do list. So if you're concerned with your to-do list in a kind of a, oh God, I got to get that done, and rather than a, oh, I can get that done that way. So if it's more of an anxiety kind of thing, that's where it comes in here. And anxiety is endemic, you know, it's everywhere at the moment. And I'm sure COVID hasn't helped with the anxiety that we experience. The message, I think the key thing with anxiety is to try not get lost in the story it's telling you. Try not to get lost in the story, and instead just try and feel the physical manifestation of it. You know, the tightness in the shoulders, the butterflies in the stomach, the closed offness in the throat. It affects different people in different ways. The sense of worry in your body, you know. Try and stay with the physical and try not to get involved in the mental story. Because if you get lost in the mental story, you'll only make it worse, you know, you'll only proliferate it. So what you're trying to do with anxiety, and indeed it's the same with ill will as well, is you're trying to step off the wheel of actively adding to it, feel it in the body, and just let itself spin out, and it'll slow down over time. Then you step off the wheel, you're not actively running on the wheel anymore, and it'll slow down over time. It might not go away straight away, but the more you can feel it in the body, and just bring yourself down into your body and not get lost in the stories you're telling yourself, the easier it'll be. And also, I mean, do you really need to think about it for another 20 minutes in meditation? You know, you can just say, right, I'll think about that afterwards. You know, it'll be fine then. But a lot of anxiety is just needless. And, you know, we come to a decision and then we think about it for another 20 minutes, you know what I mean? Because we're anxious. And anxiety is just an emotional habit of worrying over something. Sometimes this is called worry and flurry. So yeah, try and work with anxiety in that way. So the next one then is Sloth and Torpor. So this is, these are rather Victorian translations, I'm afraid, from when the first Buddhist texts were translated into English. I don't think I've ever used the word sloth or torpor in a sentence. But sloth is more the physical, where you're just really physically feeling like your body has no energy at all, and you just can't get any energy going. Torpor is the more the mental. You feel like you're wading through treacle or something really thick, you know. You just can't get any energy going. Your mind feels really sluggish. And it's a bit different to tiredness. If you're tired, you just need to try and work on getting more sleep and protecting the space around your meditation, outside of your meditation. Sloth and torpor often happens when there's an internal resistance and you just don't want to do anything, so your mind switches off. It can happen if there's a lot of emotion going on at the moment in your life, maybe even trauma. You know, you just shut down. You're not able to really open up or go into your heart anymore. It can happen as well if your meditation has been going quite well previously. Maybe you've gone deeper in meditation yesterday, and today you're still absorbing that. So there's nothing. So you know, your mind just isn't ready to go deep again. With sloth and torpor, there's not much you can do. Your practice just has to be staying awake and trying to stay with the practice. And it might even be that you open your eyes a bit more and you bring your awareness higher in your body. Typically with anxiety and restlessness, you bring your awareness lower in your body. But sloth and torpor, you bring your awareness higher in your body a bit, up to your mouth, throat, even your eyes. Maybe open your eyes and meditate with your eyes softly gazing on the ground in front of you, not staring, but having a soft gaze. But your practice kind of needs to be just staying awake and waiting for it to pass. There's not much more you can do with that. And then the last one is doubt and indecision. So this is where you're chronically questioning things in meditation. So there's nothing wrong with asking questions. So a really good question, for example, is why should I do metta for the difficult person? That's a really interesting question to reflect upon. But do that reflection outside of meditation. And in meditation, just commit to doing the practice for now. Another way we have doubt and indecision is we think, oh God, is this neutral person really neutral? Maybe I should pick that person, and maybe I should pick this person. And often that's just a strategy to avoid engaging with the practice. Yeah, so your mind is very clever about these strategies. So in the practice, just commit to doing the practice. So by doubt and indecision here, we mean less of a honest questioning and more of a kind of a sitting on the fence so I don't have to do anything about anything. Yeah. So when you sit on the fence, if you know that expression, you don't have to do it then. You just have to kind of keep going, oh, I'm not sure, I'm not sure, I'm not sure. And we probably do that a lot in our lives anyway. There's probably a lot more doubt and indecision in the world than we realize in our lives and in the world than we realize. And really, it's a way of not committing to something. We can have honest doubt, but this is what you might call dishonest doubt because you just don't want to engage with things. And the answer is just to commit, just to do it anyway. Yeah. So these are the 5 hindrances. Hopefully you'll see how the ways you tend to get distracted, and it will tend to be a predominant pattern of distraction. The more we habitually do something, the easier it is to do it next time. Yeah. So we'll fall into one of these things. And it's probably worth saying at this point that even if you never meditate again, you could still look at these in your life during your week and see how you do them in your life. So they're kind of ways we use to cope with life as well. So part of the homework this week is I want you to also look at how many of these you do in your day as well. And are they helpful? Because a lot of the time they're just not that helpful, actually. You know, we get into anxiety a lot in our day off the cushion, or maybe we just spend a lot of time indecisive and actually we'd be better off committing to something. Or maybe we spend a lot of our day just daydreaming and sense desire, or in ill will with fantasies of even violence, you know? So these are ways we have to cope with life, never mind meditation, although you can really see them clearly in meditation, hopefully. So look at them in your day as well and seeing, I think they're very useful to look at in your day. Okay, I've spoken a bit, but I just want to give one last thing, which is general strategies for how to work with these, and then I'll shut up. Okay. So the main thing is to turn to these are the main things to do. So accept, turn towards the fact that we're doing ill will, turn towards the fact that we're anxious with kindness. Don't give yourself a hard time about doing a hindrance, doing a distraction. Allow it in, you know. Feel it. See where you can feel it, like anxiety and ill will in particular, see where you can feel it in the body. Sense desire, this one won't work as well, but generally see if you can feel it in the body, you know. It's very good to be able to name it. So if you can be able to name something, you tend to have a power over it that you don't otherwise have. You know, you have the story of Rumpelstiltskin. So when I think is it a princess? When the heroine in the story knew the character's name, she suddenly had a power over it. And that's a very common theme in fairy tales and folk stories and so on. And there is a truth to it. Once you recognize, I'm doing sense desire here. This is just anxiety. This is doubt and indecision. Suddenly it loses its power over you and you can do more with it. So you should really learn off that list of 5 hindrances. Learn them off, have them to hand, or at least know the ones that you do very well, the name of them, and be able to name them. You don't always have to name them. Sometimes it's enough just to bring it back to the breath or back to metta, but sometimes it can be useful to go, I'm just doing anxiety here. This isn't helpful. Yeah. So this is the same thing, acknowledging it. So, I'm distracted here. Okay, I'm going to allow myself to feel the fact that I'm distracted, and then bring yourself back to the practice. Let go of the distraction, bring yourself back to the practice. So it feels like there's a lot there, but you can simplify that in your own way again. The main thing is to recognize that you're distracted and remember to bring yourself back to the practice, yeah? But these are all ways to help you to do that, yeah? So feel free again to write any questions or comments. So let's just let me see if I can get my mouse working again. There it is. Okay, great. So let's just sit for a few minutes right now. So we got 10 minutes left. So why don't we just set up, and we can just I'll just lead us through a little reflection on how we tend to get distracted. Yeah. So setting ourselves up, we can still, there'll be a few minutes for questions afterwards. Just setting ourselves up for meditation, closing your eyes, tuning into your body. When we're ready, then allowing the breath to emerge. The breath in the body breathing at its own pace. And for the next few minutes, we'll be with the breath, just like in the third stage of the mindfulness of breathing. So the breath without a count. And connecting with our intention to stay engaged with the breath. And then being with the breath for the next few minutes. And noticing if we wander off, notice if we get distracted, seeing if we can recognize how we've gotten distracted. Is it sense desire, ill will, restlessness and anxiety, sloth and torpor, doubt and indecision? And doing what you need to come back then to the practice. Back to the breath again. You can feel it in the body. Turn towards it with kindness, name it, acknowledge it, let it go. And if we're not distracted, seeing if we can just let go into the enjoyment of the breath, the simplicity of the breath a little bit more. So where is our mind right now? Is it with the practice or are we distracted? And then when you're ready, letting go of the breath and just sitting for a few moments. And then bringing the practice to a close, Opening your eyes and reintroducing movement in your own time. Okay, so that's it. Was a bit shorter than I'd like it to be to explore that, but hopefully you might have got the sense there that you can see how you get distracted. It's useful to be able to see how you get distracted, or indeed, again, just to emphasize that if meditation's going well, don't always look for problems. You know, if it's going well, trust that and allow yourself to go deeper. And you know, just be. I guess you're aware of what you need to do, ideally throughout your meditation. If you need to relax more into the enjoyment of meditation, you do that. If you need to work with a distraction, you do that. And if you can just allow it to unfold, you get out of the way and let that happen. You know. So a couple of comments. Noleg, is yawning okay? Good. It's usually a sign your body's relaxing actually, and you do yawn to keep yourself awake. So if you need to yawn, do so. But you know, try and do your yawn not in an explosive way, but in a kind of a slow and mindful way if you can, or a way that doesn't disturb your meditation too much. You know, it's quite normal. So Bernie asks, which of the 5 does thinking of things to be done fit into? So Bernie, if the emotional tone is one of worry, it's anxiety. And if it's not one of worry, it's probably sense desire, very mild sense desire. It can just be random. It can just be like, you could also use your own labels like, okay, I'm just thinking of things I need to get done. Let's stop doing that for now. And often it's enough of a decision to say, no, I'm just not going to do that right now. Yeah. Just say no, as they used to say. I'll do that later. Even you could just say later and come back to it later, you know. In the notes this week, there's a lot more detail about how to work with the different hindrances. So you might want to have a read of those. Far more than we can get into on this meditation morning. Wendy, that's probably sense desire if you're daydreaming. Yeah, that's a very common one. Okay, so you can keep asking questions, but just to say that the home practice this week, let me just bring it up here. So the home practice this week is to meditate every day and do the development of loving kindness and the mindfulness of breathing on alternative days. So do the mindfulness breathing one day, the metta bhavana the other day, and keep repeating that. And again, if you're very diligent and you want to do one each day, or both of them each day, you do mindfulness one sit, metta loving kindness the next sit. And I haven't put that up here as well, but do remember to, during your day, watch out for which hindrances you do, which of the 5 hindrances. Learn off that list or print it out somewhere or something like that. And just notice how often you go to them during your day to cope with things. And ask yourself, is this the best strategy? And maybe even apply the antidotes that I mentioned earlier as well, because anxiety is just a habit that we do to try and cope with things. But there are better ways of responding to things. There are more creative ways. So you're trying to move to a creative response rather than an automatic response in all this. And then finally, don't forget that you can donate as well to help support the centre, to help us support courses like this and keep on going with this. So the link for that is dublinbuddhistcentre.org/donate. And I'll send you that link as well in the email. So do feel free to send in any questions or any last comments or questions. But best luck with your practice. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time, but hopefully you all see each other next week when Yanadara is here as well.